You know what? That's a great segue into this next topic because going from this hyper fixation on illegal immigration somehow uh, being the source of all that ails this country, however, fixating only on brown skinned people who are, and a third of whom are, the ready assumption here is that they are at some point in the process of obtaining their citizenship. Again, I've said it before on the show. If the focus was to decrease the number of illegal people in this country, making the path to citizenship easier would be the focus of the administration. If indeed the focus is getting people out of the country who are not citizens, then it would include non-brown people, right? And not be super focused on them. So that hypocrisy, again, is a great segue into Donald Trump pardoning drug dealers while escalating a drug war. Again, the hypocrisy is on full display here. So I'll share. This is from NPR. President Trump has long called for escalating the U.S. drug war against Mexican cartels and wants tougher penalties for dealers selling fentanyl and other street drugs in American communities. Quote, I am ready for it. The death penalty if you deal drugs, unquote. Trump said during a meeting with state governors in February, where he said dealers are too often treated with a slap on the wrist. That was his words. But despite his tough rhetoric, Trump has sparked controversy by pardoning a growing number of convicted drug dealers, including this week's move to grant clemency to Larry Hoover, 74, who was serving multiple life sentences in federal prison for crimes linked to his role in leading the Chicago-based gangster disciples. I want to be mindful that the article is, this is just the insight here. So anyway, already during the early months of his second term, Trump has granted clemency to at least 8 individuals convicted on federal drug charges. Some, including Hoover, have extensive criminal records involving violence and gun charges. Quote, there is a lot of mixed messages and mixed signals from the White House, which creates sort of chaos and uncertainty, said Jeffrey Singer, a drug policy analyst at the Cato Institute, a librarian think tank. Quote, on the one hand, you're threatening even tougher penalties on people who deal drugs, while on the other hand, you're releasing drug dealers from prisons, unquote. Trump's clemency for Hoover and other drug offenders follows a pattern that began during his first term in the White House while promising tough action against drug dealers. Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences of at least 13 people convicted of federal crimes, drug crimes, between 2017 and 2021, including high-level dealers linked to violence or convicted of operating major trafficking rings. In 2020, Trump's administration also freed a senior Mexican military official arrested by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration in Los Angeles on charges he helped cartels traffic drugs into the U.S. under pressure from Mexico's government. Officials in Trump's Justice Department dropped the prosecution of General Salvador Cienfuegos Zepeda. In the first months of his second term, Trump also pardoned Russ Ulbright, a former tech entrepreneur serving a life term in federal prison for creating Silk Road, a dark web internet site that became a major conduit for drug traffickers. And again, this article is from a while back, but more recent articles and headlines have covered additional pardons. Before we get into those, though, Q, I want to make sure that you have plenty of time to reflect. So your thoughts.
It's a very, very interesting world for his supporters. It's interesting that these articles say that these things spark controversy. No, they don't. We know he's a liar. So that's that. And to his base, he can't do any wrong. It would spark controversy if some of this stuff happened and these people that say they support him for reasons other than racism, all of these things should offend them because it's all the reasons that they say, yeah, he's tough on crime, or he's for law and order, or he's a Christian, or God sent him. And they say all these things, and then his actions are contrary to that, and they're not offended. They don't even pretend. They just denounce their God and their kids. So they don't have to say they were wrong about him. It is the most interesting is the word that I'm going to use because I don't want to be overtly offensive to anyone. But it is the most interesting thing I've ever witnessed. Your president pardons drug traffickers, like major federally convicted drug traffickers, and then gets on television and tells you he's unaliving people on fishing boats because he's trying to stop drugs,
Hmm.
and you believe him. I don't know who it says more about. Is it saying more about him or more about those people that believe in him? Because support him, it's beyond that. It's not just support. These are not just people that vote. Because I vote, but I haven't fought anybody or cursed anybody or denounced my God or my children in the name of any person I've ever voted for. His believers, his followers, this zealot-like base that he has where he cannot do anything wrong. Even the thing, they'll go on TV with him saying this thing is wrong. All of them, his followers, him, his colleagues in politics, and then he'll do the wrong thing, and all of those people about facing that thing is no longer wrong. This thing happening simultaneously should spark controversy, but it doesn't. It should raise some red flags and make some people pause. That on the news one day he's saying he's unaliving people with impunity on camera with missiles because he thinks they're bringing drugs with no proof, no evidence, no due process, no case, no arrest, no nothing. And then that same man goes in front of those same cameras and offers full pardons to federally convicted, and not just federally tried and convicted, but people who pled guilty, people who confessed to crimes,
Yeah.
full pardons
So,
from
so
their Lord, Savior, and President Donald
Donald
J.
Trump.
Trump.
So watch this. This is from The Guardian. Former Honduras President Juan Orlando Hernandez recently thanked God and Donald Trump, in that order, for being pardoned by the latter of a drug trafficking conviction won by federal U.S. prosecutors less than 2 years earlier. So, first, I want to talk about federal U.S. prosecutors. It took me a long time to learn this, but once I learned it well. I learned it through other people, rappers, if I'm being honest. That's how I grew up. But Biggie said it best: "Only the feds I fear." Um, State crimes, I'm not sure what the conviction rate is, but it's certainly lower than federal crimes. Federal prosecutors, they tend to get their convictions. So this isn't a person who, this isn't a person you would think this government would turn a blind eye to. There's substantial resources that go into federal convictions. And if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to it, but if I'm not mistaken, this is actually one of the people that confessed, this former president from Honduras. So go ahead, Q. Go ahead.
I wanted to point this out because that sounded anecdotal, and I want people to understand the point that you just made. It wasn't just because Biggie said it, people. The reason why federal crimes and federal cases have such a high conviction rate is because they have the resources of the United States of America
Yeah.
to make their cases with. So long before you even know you're being pursued, they've made a pretty ironclad case against you. So when it's the United States of America versus whoever you are, you tend to lose. So that sounded anecdotal and like something Ramses just said because it sounded cool, but I needed people to understand that there's a reason why federal conviction rates are so high. If the feds bring a case against you and you've been subpoenaed by the United States of America,
It's a wrap.
yeah.
They got you. Well, in any event, Donald Trump pardoning all these drug dealers and then rounding up all the brown people because of, the fear of them importing drugs into this country and blowing up boats for that same fear is crazy, and it's hypocrisy.